Don't get me wrong, as much as I would love it if Apple started making more affordable hardware, I think it's a little bit too much wishful thinking, and Mark Gurman recently was talking about this in his latest Power On newsletter, how he believed once the iPhone SE 5G launches in a couple weeks, Apple will cut the price in half of the current iPhone SE. It's fun to dream, but in today's video, I'm talking about why that probably is never gonna happen. Let's begin. So wording in articles should probably be prefaced, I think, a little bit more. It's probably easy to get caught up in just browsing headlines here and there, but Mark Gurman has proven to be a pretty reputable source. He's reported on lots of things in the past and gotten a lot of things right, still misses things on occasion, but it's probably easy to miss the point that in one of his more recent tweets, he said that, we're only a couple weeks away from this new iPhone SE coming out, and then Apple should lower the price of the current SE to $199. If you actually open up the article and read the wording he chose, this is speculation partnered with leaks suggesting that Mark Gurman wants Apple to do this, but doesn't necessarily have any sources or anyone telling him that this is actually going to happen. Now, there's certainly some business advantages to this. It's easy for us to just look at the whole lineup and say, that should be cheaper, that should be cheaper, that should be cheaper. From a consumer perspective, that's easy to do. But even from the business perspective, Mark is arguing that a $199 iPhone would basically be Apple tackling the market share game, right? Because we just got too many freaking rich people already buying our iPhones. Now we need to start breaking into the more affordable market of people who aren't willing to spend $1,000 on Animoji machines. Now we just want to get into the services game and start deploying, iCloud and Arcade or Apple Music on more and more devices. And if more and more people are part of the iMessage superior ecosystem, then they might feel more compelled to buy AirPods and Apple Watches. So basically, Apple would take a page out of the Scamsung booklet and suggest, let's lose money on our hardware and we'll make it back in the future with services and accessories. Apple's normally not the type to do that. Typically, they like having big old fat profit margins whenever possible. And while the actual manufacturing of parts might be a bit low for this entry-level iPhone that Apple's been selling for almost 2 years now, my main argument as to why Apple is not going to do this actually has more to do with product cannibalization. This is why the iPhone 9 doesn't exist, right? Because 7, 8... Okay, never mind. We have seen iPhones get price reductions in the past. This is not a new thing, especially when new iPhones come out, but a $200 price reduction at one time, that I've almost never seen happen before. Probably the closest we ever got to that was the iPhone XR debuting in 2018, and then in 2019, they lowered the price by $150. But keep in mind, even when Apple introduces the 13 mini and still keeps the 12 mini around, dropping $100 off of a $700 iPhone is not as big a deal as dropping $200 off of a $400 iPhone. That's a 50% price reduction within one jump, and the bigger problem is I think that iPhone SE would sell way too well. By far, it would be the most interesting thing that happens at this inevitable March keynote that's supposed to happen later this month. But the number of people that would be willing to pay twice the price just so that they could have 5G in their phone and maybe the A15 chip instead of the A13, I personally think that market would be exceptionally low. So while Apple would brag about, hey, here's a new 5G iPhone SE, it comes in new colors and probably would have more storage options than the $199 iPhone would, still, it would be $200 more, or essentially twice the price, just so that you could have a bit faster cellular speeds. And particularly people who are comparing $200 and $400 phones, that demographic is not going to care too much about cellular performance. They're just like, I want an iPhone, what's the cheapest one I can get? The hardware's not very good when Apple's website starts advertising how this is good for FaceTime. It has a camera, and the camera's good. That's basically the whole iPod Touch marketing page. Although I like what Mark Gurman is getting on, because he is mentioning that if you could buy an iPhone SE for $199, Apple could finally kill off the iPod Touch, because pretty much everyone's counter-argument as to why iPod Touches make sense would suddenly dissolve if Apple was selling an iPhone for $199, especially because you could get it unlocked pretty easily. But if that type of iPhone existed, I think there would almost be no point in offering a 5G version, because that is not a $200 upsell, in my opinion. Unless there's some big refresh that we're not anticipating with this upgraded iPhone SE. Maybe they give it an upgraded camera and it has night mode, or maybe it has a brighter display or an upgraded FaceTime camera. At least a larger battery capacity, because you would definitely need to offer more than just 5G, I think, to justify a $200 price increase. And again, that big a price increase when we're talking about phones this cheap is not the same thing as there being like $200 between an iPhone 13 and 13 Pro, because that's an overall smaller percentage of the total phone purchase. There's a ton of people that would probably trade in their old iPhones, and they could completely cover the cost of an iPhone SE for $199 because of the trade-in values of older iPhones being pretty dang close to $199. So Apple would have to be ready to lose a healthy amount of money on their hardware sales, and just hope that people who spend $199 on iPhones would also be totally cool with buying $130 AirPods or a $200 Apple Watch. Just please don't buy the Series 3. That thing should have died 2 years ago. And for the record, I do hope I'm wrong about this. It would definitely say something about Apple's services game. If we did see Apple start selling iPhones for that cheap, it would mean that Tim Cook feels very comfortable about pushing his Fitness Plus commercials on everyone in India and trying to grow their market share as much as possible just so that they can break in some more iCloud revenue. They would have to be very confident to put a price point that low. And if I'm wrong about this and they end up doing it, then I guess Apple services must be pretty dang profitable. But based on their lack of transparency and their earnings reports on how well individual services are doing, I'm pretty sure most of the services revenue is just iCloud, Apple Care, and Google paying to be the default search engine in their browser. That's probably the biggest moneymaker. They make $20 billion and they literally have to do nothing. You know, maintaining iCloud server space, that takes some infrastructure, that takes some work. Providing Apple Care services, that does cost them something, but not changing the search engine, that's literally free and that's super profitable for them. So they just bunch that in with the services section on their big pie chart and say, yeah, look, Apple services is doing great, but the number of people actually paying a good amount for News Plus and Fitness Plus and TV Plus. I know there's some of you out there paying for Apple One because you're in the tech community, but I don't think that's the majority of consumers. So for that reason, I expect that the current generation iPhone SE is just going to be removed from the website soon. It'll be discontinued, replaced for $399 with a 5G version and the A15 chip. It'll sell okay. The battery life is still going to suck, but I'm not anticipating any price reductions. Maybe if we're lucky, some certified refurbished iPhone SE2s show up in the certified refurbished page, and maybe you find some discounts on Best Buy and Amazon and that type of stuff. But from Apple, I think it would sell way too well. So feel free to disagree with me down below and let me know why you think Apple should sell an iPhone for $5. Why not, right? Because we just got to grow our services. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you all in the next one.